A few months ago, I used my credit card to gain extreme ownership over Jocko Willink's Origin boots. Here's what's happened to me since. So our first question comes from a listener. He asks, what's the deal with Origin boots? Are they any good? Are they worth the money? This is really a three-part question, so I'm gonna have to break my answer down. I'll give some details like how Origin boots are made, what materials they are, and that's gonna give some context on whether I think the Origin boots are really actually worth their money. Since first trying on these Origin boots, I've started waking up at 4:30 in the morning. No excuses. It's not even by choice. It just started happening to me. I've also started taking extreme ownership around the house. Extreme ownership. Extreme ownership. I picked up the Origin Lincoln 1861 boot with the heavy rubber lug sole. I believe one of the reasons why this boot makes such a decisive impact is because of its material quality. This boot features stitched down construction, Seidel Tanning Company leather from Milwaukee, a heavy Vibram lug outsole. The leather is rich chrome tanned pull-up leather that doesn't need much care and is water resistant, 2.5 millimeters thick and double that at the heel and the toe cap. The sole is a pour-on insole, a high-density foam footbed, vegetable tanned leather midsole, and a Vibram rubber lug outsole. The benefits of a synthetic insole are that the boot immediately feels comfortable, but as we'll see, there are some drawbacks to the durability with that, which can create a liability in the field. As far as the style of the Origin boots go, it's a pretty wide and stubby boot that's especially accentuated with the cap toe here. Now, I think that these boots personally look the best with a straight cut pair of jeans or a jiu-jitsu gi. One of the amazing things about Origin boots is that they're almost entirely made in the USA. Every single part of this boot is sourced in the United States with the exception of the veg tan midsole. I have a lot of respect for Origin for making it so clear where each component of this boot is from. For instance, they make it known that the thread comes from North Carolina, the laces come from North Carolina. I believe the insole comes from Ohio. Compare that to another brand, which I won't name but rhymes with Borogood, where the components of the boot there are sourced from all over abroad, and then they are assembled in the USA. Then it gets a little nylon flag thrown on it that says, oh, made in the USA. That said, I mean, it is made in the USA, so I'm always a fan of American manufacturing in any form, but the Origin boot goes to the next level, no excuses. And speaking of, I've been wearing my Origin boots with these Camel City Mill wool work socks. These are made in North Carolina with 53% Ironside merino wool. Beyond that, Camel City Mill offers a 10-year guarantee for the durability on these socks. Now, I like these socks for a few key reasons. One, the wool makes them sweat wicking, so your feet stay dry and don't get sweaty in the field. Two, they offer insulation in the colder months while still being breathable in the warmer months. Three, they have slight compression through the calf and through the arch, so that promotes blood flow, which will help your feet recover after a long day of training. Right now, Camel City Mill is offering free shipping on orders $50 and above, which you can jump on right now in the link down in the description below. Now, I still want to get back to the reader's question here. The reader asked, is Origin worth the money? We've gone over the things that I like about the Origin 1861 Lincoln Big Lug sole boot, but there are some critical issues with this boot that I'm gonna address ASAP. I really only have two problems with this boot. The first is that there's no shank along the waist of the boot or in the arch of the boot. Now, you see, that might not be such a big issue with some of the other versions of the 1861 Lincoln. There is a smaller lug sole version. There is also a wedge sole version, and those will continue to have arch support for you when you're out in the field. But with the heavy lug sole, you have quite a differential between the heel and the forefoot. And with this vegetable tanned midsole, that will continue to crease and break in over time, and that might cause a lot of flex in the arch of the boot, where a steel shank would keep that stiff. And I'm very concerned that over time, as that vegetable tan midsole breaks in, we'll start to have pinching at the front of the heel. Now, the pinching in the front of the heel isn't too big of a deal. As we know, since I've got these Origin boots, I've begun to embrace pain. So this will increase my effectiveness as a lethal operator. Now, my second issue with this boot is the hybrid stitch down construction. Now, the front of this boot is an absolute tank. So you have stitch down construction. It's a flared out piece of leather that is stitched into the vegetable tan midsole and then is also screwed into the outsole. So this is a very, very sturdy construction, basically waterproof in the front. But then it transitions to something very similar to a Blake stitch construction, starting at the waist of the boot all the way through the heel. Now, that's a very clever method of construction for these boots and not one I have ever seen from another boot brand. So it's very clever, but while clever, it doesn't necessarily address some of the major issues from that Blake stitch-like construction starting from the waist going through the heel. Now, as you can see in this close-up, there is a noticeable gap between the upper and that midsole, and that is a liability in the field. Why is that a liability? Well, I mean, water can just slip in right through there and seep into the boot. So that can be an issue long-term, especially if you get these boots wet, if your socks get wet because the water has slipped in there. You need to make sure that you are able to fully dry the boot to avoid mold, mildew, any of the issues that can happen with a leather boot that doesn't dry out fast enough. So I do want to answer the reader's question, are Origin boots worth it? I mean, one of the first things that comes to mind, Seidel leather stitch down construction. I have one other pair of boots that features those two things. It's my White's Packer boot, and those have the same leather stitch down construction. Those are worth $600, so you can do the math there yourself. These are in the low 300s, $310, I believe, compared to a $600 boot, so you do the math. The quality of the materials is phenomenal here on the Origin boot. Another thing that I absolutely love about these Origin boots is that they are entirely made in the USA, and they do a fantastic job making sure you know exactly where each part of this boot is from. And it's not just that it's a made in the USA or finished assembling in the USA. The real thing about this is that every part of this boot is from the USA, including the rubber outsole. That's from Massachusetts. If you are wondering if you can resole your Origin boots, well, the answer is yes. You can resole these pretty much an unlimited amount of times, so long as that flange of leather around the outside doesn't get too damaged. But any reasonably seasoned cobbler can take care of that for you again and again. But ultimately, those two main issues, the lack of the steel shank and that sort of proto Blake stitch construction around the waist and the heel, creating a little bit of a liability in the field in terms of getting water into your boot. Those are two major issues that I have large concerns about. Now, I'm looking at this next question here. The next listener wants me to rank American-made boot brands from worst to best, including where Origin stands next to other USA-made boots. So I actually made a video on that subject, which you can follow and watch right here. I'll see you at Dark 30 in the next video, and until then, put your best boot forward.